In this video, I traveled to Kentucky to meet up with Jimmy in the Daniel Boone National Forest. Jimmy has had a lifetime of strange encounters and experiences in this mysterious forest, and it would happen so much that he used to think it was normal. You know, when someone really experienced something terrifying, you can look at them in the eye and see through the windows of their soul a memory that has never been forgotten throughout all the years. Jimmy has hunted these woods for a long time now, and he knows there is something dark going on in the forest of Kentucky. When you are in the Daniel Boone National Forest, you get this unsettling feeling that you are constantly being watched. The Daniel Boone Forest consists of over 700,000 acres. We know this area has had many Bigfoot encounters in the past, and I interviewed a gentleman named Christopher who was hunting in the Daniel Boone National Forest when he was run out of the area and later on ended up seeing the creature walking around his tree stand. I will leave a link to that interview down below, and I will also link it on the screen at the end of this video. The pioneer Daniel Boone claimed to have killed a 10-foot hairy giant. Could these creatures still inhabit the forest today? And Jimmy is here to tell us that they certainly are. I am here to better understand Jimmy's encounters and to explore the Daniel Boone National Forest in hopes that I can find these creatures, to document the activity and share it with the world. All right, Jimmy, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. It's a pleasure to have you on the show and to be able to meet up with you today. If you would, tell me about all your experiences and encounters with the cryptids, and how did you get into all this? We're in Kentucky in the Daniel Boone National Forest. If you would, tell me about your first Bigfoot encounter and describe everything in full detail.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you guys are here. The first encounter was I was 7 years old, so it was 75, 76, somewhere in there. And we're down on the river camping. It's me, my Uncle Jim, Uncle Lanny, Uncle Walt, Uncle Mike, a family friend, and I can't really remember his name, and my dad was going to come in later that night. We were down there for a month, but we'd been down there for 2 weeks before anything had happened. And I'll never forget, it was a Friday night. My dad had made arrangements for his brothers to come to the top of the mountain and get him, and we'd all just fixed up a big old camp stew, and we were there eating. And like I said, I was 7 years old. Hell, I was into everything, you know. Got into bad patch of poison ivy. Hell, I had it in my eyes, my mouth. I was just a kid. So we'd ate, and then I think they was going to meet my dad at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night. So my Uncle Walt and a family friend head out to the top of the mountain. And like I was telling you, it's 45 minutes to an hour because it was rough. And it left my Uncle Jim and my Uncle Lanny and myself down there at camp. And the way it was positioned, we was parallel, the road run parallel with the river. You had the river, the road, and then our camp. And we ain't 20 yards, 25 yards to most from the river's edge. And they left out, and like I said, it was about 45 minutes to an hour up there. Well, about 30 minutes after they left, I was goofing around and running around playing. And I heard something, but I heard my uncle say, "Boy, shut up, I hear something." And so, you know, as a kid, I didn't know, you know, if he was what he was trying to listen to. And then he got on to me, and I knew he was serious because I could see his eyes. His eyes were like, "Oh God, what is this?" And so me and Lanny stopped, and that's when I first hear it. Like I said, it's a roar / scream, and you can tell it's at the top of the ridge. And I'm thinking to myself, what in God's name is this? You know, I'm just 7 years old. And it does it a couple more times, then you hear a giant snap, just crack. And I'm puzzled, and I'm watching my uncle. My emotions are feeding off of my Uncle Jim. And about that time, all hell broke loose. This thing come off. It come off the mountain down about halfway. I mean, it sounded like an elephant running. I mean, it ain't running beside camp. It's running right toward camp. And it gets down there and stops. And when it does this crazy... Wasn't like the first one, like a roar scream. It was just a pissed off... Rah! And I mean, it's loud. And when it does that, you could feel your inside shake. And I'm looking at my uncle, and we hear this and stuff, automatically position ourselves. I'm following my uncle's lead, but the fire's between us and whatever the hell this is. And then all of a sudden, man, this thing come running right down into camp. I mean, just raising hell, screaming, hollering, breaking, just smashing. And when you're camping, you know, like a campfire or a lantern, it shines out so far and it's a black wall. Well, it stops right at that line. You can't see nothing. And then it works its way around to, like I said, our camp's here, road, and the river. This thing works around right at the edge of the road. And the trees I'm talking about, this thing was shaking, was about this big around, anywhere from 8 to 10 inches, something like that. The bunch looked like to me there's a bunch of maple or poplar. I really can't tell because like I said, I was 7. These things, they wasn't quivering and they wasn't shaking. They was 6 or 8 trees. I mean, these things, it looks like a tornado set down in a patch of these things. These damn things are going crazy. And I can still remember in my ears right now, the limbs and stuff snapping and falling. And I'm watching my uncle with the Mauser pointing that way, and I'm in disbelief. I mean, 7-year-old kid, hell, I'm living a true nightmare. And we're all over his back. After it stops shaking them trees, it goes eerily silent. And I can still remember. I don't know what it was on the gun, and I've left this out. You could hear something clanking, like what happened to me, from your nerves shaking. And then all of a sudden, it started moving. Well, when it started moving, me and my uncle's all over his back. He's hollering, "Get off, boys, get off. I'm going to have to shoot. Get off of me." He said, "Get in the tent right now." Well, we tear off to the tent. The tent ain't 10 feet away from the fire. And I'll never forget, we get in there, we're on our hands and knees, and I'm looking out at my uncle. And the fire's here, my uncle's here, and whatever his thing is right there. And you can see him. I mean, he's terrified. I could read his face. A grown man is terrified. And about that time, me and my Uncle Laney hear something coming behind us. And I hear it, but he reacted first. He put his hand on my back. He said, "Don't move, be quiet." And this thing, it's bipedal. You can hear its footsteps, but it's trying to sneak in. You can hear its footsteps. This thing keeps advancing, and then about that time, it was probably me first. I come ripping out of the tent, and when I'm ripping out of the tent, me and my Uncle Lane, he's right behind me, about to knock him down, and he's hollering and screaming. And about this time, this thing screams behind the tent. He pulls that gun around, and like I said, it's a living nightmare. You know, I don't know if is that one, that one's this one, or whatever. I'm just living in a nightmare. That thing screams. As soon as it screams, he wheels around. This thing hollers. And I'm talking, when these screams are happening, they ain't no more than 20, 25, no more 30 yards away from us. But every time they would do that, you could feel your lungs and your inner organs and stuff shaking, vibrating. They're so loud that I'm trying to cover my ears. But they're going back and forth, trying to get your attention. Whew. And then when this one over here that was shaking the trees like a tornado's in it, a big old cracked limb, and you could see, and I can still remember the light shining on this foliage. It's in July, and I remember seeing the limb and stuff moving, but just a giant snap. And my uncle wheels from the tent back to this position, and that's when it comes out from the black wall, and it steps forward. And I mean, you know, I'm looking up, and my uncle, when he pans around, there's a tree. Like I said, they were about 8 or 10 inches diameter. This thing had its head behind that tree, but hell, it's 4 or 5 feet wide, 8, 9 feet tall. I mean, it's massive, but it was so weird looking back on it now. It tried to keep its face between us and that. When it come around, my uncle dropped his gun. And I never will forget. I mean, just the fear of shaking. Hell, I'm crying and everything like that. And then he grabs it, and this one over here is moving. I can hear it moving, and it's coming around. About that time, all this is going on. And that old Scout was loud, and you could hear him going through mud holes and coming. But I couldn't hear nothing. Neither could my uncles hear nothing. I don't understand that reason why. But we could not hear nothing but focus and hearing on what these things are screaming and doing. When the lights, I remember the lights looking, hitting the trees. This thing that's in front of us rips out, and you could hear about 2 or 3 just massive steps, and then a huge splash like a car fell out of the sky. And though the other one that had worked its way back around, you could hear it ripping up by the road. It worked its way into the road, I guess. And they come into camp, and we're all freaked out. I'm screaming and crying, and I mean, Lanny, my Uncle Lanny was, and Jim, he was in total shock. And I run up to my dad, and we're all screaming and hollering, and they're like, what the hell's going on here? Everybody calms down. And my uncle, my dad, my Uncle Mike, my Uncle Walt, and their neighbor, or not neighbor, but their friend that was down there with us, I remember them walking up in the woods and going down by the road. Whatever this was that hit the river, hell, it's gone. But I can remember seeing flashlights shine around, and my Uncle Jim and Lanny, we're froze by the fire. I don't want to leave the fire. To me, the fire was protecting us, but they shined around, come back. So, boys, are you sure this wasn't a bobcat? And my uncle's trying to tell my dad, you know, please listen, we're not lying, and said, we heard it hit the river. So I remember going over there, and I remember them shining around, and you could see. But the next morning, we're up all night. But the next morning, I remember going around there, and you could see where this thing had stepped, and its last step was the edge of the riverbank, and you could see where it slid in. And that thing had hit the river and went across, and the other one run up the road. And yeah, that was the first time I got introduced to these things.
Okay.
As a 7-year-old kid.
So what did the vocalization sound like when you first heard it up on the ridge?
Like I said, it was scream/roar, but there was times it was screaming like a woman's just getting gutted. High pitch, but deep, just, I mean, it was loud up there, but when it come into camp, I remember trying to cover my ears, but they were several different ones, but these were pissed off. And best way to describe it, my uncle said this. He said, look, I'm here and here I come. That's what I'm saying. But we'd been down there 2 weeks. Nothing. You'd hear stuff. If you've ever heard a bobcat scream at night, their blood curdling. Now, it'll raise the hair on your head. Hell no, it was nothing like this.
This was like prehistoric.
Yeah, it's just that when it starts out with that deep guttural, and I don't know. It is, the only way to describe it is go to a zoo. When you hear a lion, just how deep and powerful the lung capacity is, just pushes it out. But like I said, when it first started, it was just like, hey, I'm here and I'm pissed off, and then breaking stuff. But when it come off the mountain, the vocalizations were changing, and you could tell this thing was pissed off bad. And we didn't do nothing. We wasn't shooting guns. We had trot lines run. Just old country guys down there, having a good time on the river, man.
What did it sound like when they moved down the ridge?
The only way I can describe it, and I've said this before, it's either like an elephant running through the forest, or somebody's drove a damn truck off the side of a hill. Okay. I mean, it's tearing up and breaking shit. I mean, it's letting you know I'm coming, and it's terrifying. I guess they do that because they know it scares people. But I'm telling you, when you have one come off the side of a mountain, It's happened twice to me, but that one there hits. I don't know if it's right to say. For some reason, I just go back to demonic and stuff, and that maybe not be the right word to say, but I mean, it's a fear that it's a damn living nightmare.
Yeah, I think it's okay to say that as far as like the paranormal, because it's anything out of the normal, and this certainly is. It's something that not everyone experiences. Something that caught my attention is you said you were cooking stew. And I wonder if that triggered them, because whenever I interviewed Fred from Alaska, he was making some type of stew, like some type of like salmon chowder. And then Ron Moorhead in the Sierra Nevadas, they were cooking stew whenever he recorded those vocalizations.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the food that triggers them. Like, man,
I don't know, but and it still, I mean, it still bothers me right now. Because if it really happens to you, you can slow yourself down, and I'm right back in it. I'm right back in that 7-year-old kid looking in and hearing this stuff, and it
puts you back in that place.
Yeah, it'll mess you up.
No, I understand, and I know it's hard to talk about. Another thing is you had the trout lines. These things were territorial. You're fishing in their area. You're occupying their space. That's probably where the clan was hanging out at. And it sounds like there was more than one, for sure.
Oh, there was definitely two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never seen the other one, but you could hear it. I don't know if it was bigger or smaller, but if it was bigger than the one that showed himself, it could have been a female. I don't know.
Yeah.
You couldn't see details of the face. I mean, it come out, you could see it, but it was still at the edge of that curtain to where it's total darkness, to where there's just a little bit of ambient light that's just shadowy. But this thing had its head behind a tree when it come up. And it was weird. Hell, its body is this wide sticking out. And I mean, it's just massive. And you could hear it breathing. You could hear it breathing way worse than the second encounter I had. I mean, this thing was just pissed off. Just you know, the one that was sneaking around wasn't. The one that exposed itself to us, yeah. And it's hard to see one as a grown-up, but as a kid at that age there, I'm not lying, that scarred me for life. It really did. And I had to come out to the doctor where I got poison ivy, and I remember my mom finding out about this, and she's like, he ain't going back down there. But I aggravated her enough. Even though I had witnessed that, I idolized my uncles. If they walked off a cliff, I'd have went with them, no questions asked. And we went back down there and never, ever heard nothing else.
Yeah. Whenever this thing stepped out of the darkness, what did it look like? And can you describe any of the features on the creature?
Really couldn't see a whole lot of the face. I mean, you could see maybe a slight... I'm not even going to say you could see its teeth, because hell, I wouldn't be telling the truth on that. You could see not really the detail of the face. It was more or less shadow because it's behind the tree, but you could see it look out, and its eyes are this big, and they're wide. I mean, as the tree it's coming up, you can see the edge of the eyes on both sides. And then when it come around, it didn't sway or nothing like that, but I could just remember hearing the breathing. And as far as facial features, really couldn't see a lot. It was dark skin for sure. It wasn't where the shadow was casting on it. It was a dark skin, like a brownish or a grayish ash color maybe. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was where it was dark. This thing could have been dark brown or black, but it ain't 15, 20 yards from us. But like I said, you know how a campfire and a lantern, it'll shine out, and it's just total darkness. And I'll never forget when it come out of the shadows. It was just like it come out of thin air, is the only way I can describe it. You could see the silhouette of it more so than like if it's way off at a distance. You could see it plain as day, and I never looked down at its hands or nothing. Only thing I'm focused is like from the chest up, looking at it. And this probably happened maybe 10 or 15 seconds when it come, and then here comes that scout. But we never heard it coming. And they had been out before. You could hear that thing coming for, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes or so. You know, going through the mud holes and just, you know, having to give it gas. And it's no scout. It was loud. Never heard nothing until I seen the lights hit the trees. And that's another thing I don't understand. Is I guess just scared to death. I don't know. But when the lights hit the trees, man, I mean, this damn thing ripped across the road and hit the river. And it sounded like a car fell out of the sky. It really did. It was that big of a splash.
Yeah, that's incredible. So from start to finish, how long did this encounter last? Was it 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
No, because they'd been gone, if you think about it. You know, I've never been asked that question.
I guess whenever you experience these things, time slows down, so it's hard to tell.
We estimated that they'd been gone for 30 minutes, maybe 45, and it was a 45-minute to an hour to the top of the mountain, and then back down. Mm-hmm. So they'd been gone for that length of time, and this is going on, they come back. So this was, I would say, anywhere from 25 to 35, 40 minutes. Okay. From when it started up here. It vocalized up here for, it wasn't long. It wasn't long. 3 or 4 screams, roars, and hell, here it come. But, yeah, I get pictures. I don't know if that's weird or not, but I get flashes of this moment when that happened, when that happened. And the sounds, I can still hear them. And when this thing's running off the hill, I ain't never in my life heard anything like that before. I have since, but, I mean, it was mind-blowing. But like I said, it wasn't a short encounter because these things were toying with my uncle. I don't know if they seen where he'd had that old Mauser or what, but they were messing with us.
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, if you got a firearm, you won't see one of these things, but you guys had a firearm.
Well, I don't believe that. Yeah. No, because trust me, they ain't afraid of them. They know that they can cause danger, but they don't care. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you. And I don't, maybe it was the food that set them off, but I'm just saying we'd been down there for 2 weeks, and then all hell broke loose. For what reason, I do not know.
Yeah, most likely just because you were in the area. And a lot of these places, there's not very many people. You know, it's pretty secluded, and you can drive out to these areas and not even pass a vehicle on the way out or see anyone drive by.
No. And that spot up in there where that happens, where I told you this ridge runs out, the only person you'll ever see up there is maybe the Park Service or something.
Yeah.
You know.
And what time of year was this? Can you...
July.
Okay, so it was in July. That's whenever I had my encounter.
Yeah.
Do you remember the weather that day? Was it a real nice day?
Hot.
Hot? Okay.
Yep. It sure was, because we'd been swimming. I mean, to me, I was a kid, man, and go down and jump in the river and soap up and rinse off and stuff. I mean, I was a kid. I mean, that was the greatest times. Like I said, I worshiped the ground all my uncles walked on. I really did. I would follow them to hell and back. I didn't know I was a 7-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. And, but it's a beautiful place. It really is. But that was the first time that I knew that monsters were real, or whatever the hell this thing was. But I guess the next time that I had something really messed up happen to me, I was around 12 years old. And me and my dad went squirrel hunting. And we're in the same region that we were in last night. And old logging road goes up through there. So we park the truck, go up there probably half a mile or better. And we get up there, and I remember I had a squirrel vest on. You know what they are. That thing was my dad's, and it dwarfed me. But I had a 410. Dad had a 12 gauge, and we got to the spot up there, and he said, son, I'm going to go on up the road. And he said, when I get up there, he said, I'll scout as I'm on the way. He said, but I want you to stand here for at least 30 minutes. He said, I'm going to go up there and scout, see if I see any squirrels, and you ease your way up through there. And if you get in trouble, you know to whistle. I was like, yeah. And so I watched my dad. Watched him walk up that road till he went plumb out of sight. So I'm standing there, and I start getting fidgety because, you know, I'm by myself. And I start thinking back on what happened when I was, you know, 7. And So I started to go up through there, and I thought to myself, no, if I don't, Dad will jump onto me, so stay here. So, you know what I mean? So I stay there, and so I start getting scared. I really do. I can't help it no more. I got to whistle. I whistled. As soon as I whistled, my dad's at 12 o'clock. Over here at 9 o'clock, I get a response. There's a ridge comes down. There's a little creek. There's ivy thicket that goes up. The ridge ain't very tall. It's a little finger ridge that comes down. Daylight's out to nothing. I thought, what the world? I whistled again. As soon as I whistled, my whistle back, it's probably 60 to 80 yards. And that ridge is just on the other side. But I could hear it, but I can't see it. And I'm puzzled. I don't know what to think about this. I'll whistle again. Same thing. I whistled again. That would have been probably my fourth or fifth whistle. And I'm thinking, my dad's over there. He said he was going up there, but if he's replying, he's over here. He's wanting me to come over here. I go down, and it's not very deep. Wade through the ivy thicket, cross that little creek, and come up. And when you come up, there's like a little small bench that runs parallel with the road and the creek up through there. I get up there and stop, and I'm trying to listen, see if I can hear my dad. I whistle again. This one is still beside me, but you can tell it's across the ridge. I moved probably 30, 40 yards closer to it, to where it was at on that side of the creek. And when I whistled again, I could tell it was over the ridge, but I kept looking. And in the back of my mind, the whole time I was thinking, I watched him go up the road. He said he wouldn't leave the road. What is going on? So instead of going to the whistle, I think to myself, as a 12-year-old kid, stay close to the road. And so I walk maybe 10, 20 yards, whistle, boom, right back. Whistle, boom, right back. And I'm freaking out because, I mean, it's like I'm whistling back to me. And I automatically, I know something ain't right. My dad would have come to me. Me whistling this much, my dad would have come to me. This thing was whistling. I don't know if it was like, hey, I'm here, come over here. That's the way I was feeling. But I thought to myself, if I'm whistling that much, my dad ain't going to wait for me to go to him. He's going to come to me because he thinks something's wrong. I know something ain't right. So I go up there. I'm starting to pick up the pace a little. I'll whistle. This thing's matching me. Keep going. It's doing the same thing. This time I'm crying. So I start picking up my pace. I'm not running, but I'm in a real fast walk. Whistle, right back. Whistle, right back. So I take off running up through there. And I guess my dad could hear me coming or something. I don't know. But I stopped and I whistled. And he whistles with a bob white whistle at probably about the 2 o'clock position, 80 yards away maybe. And I'm like, what in the world? I know that's my dad. He's replied to me that. But when I whistled and he whistled back, the bob white whistle, the whistle wasn't on the ridge or other side of the ridge. It was behind me. And man, when it done that, I tore off down through that ivy thicket, running up there to him. And I'm crying hysterically. I said, Dad, why wouldn't you answer me? I was whistling my head off. He said, son, I ain't whistled the first time. And I'm crying hysterically, and I'm screaming, Dad, you were whistling. No, I wasn't. He said, why were you over? I said, you was whistling at me. He said, son, I never whistled. And I see this gets my dad's attention. Never did see or hear anything, but when I whistled the very first time, it wasn't like 2 or 3 seconds. As soon as my whistle stops, this thing's right back to me. I whistled right back to me. And it led me out of the road. And that was the scary part, thinking back on it and everything. And I've told this story my whole life. And I still can't figure it out. I really don't know. I don't know what it was, but I can go back and relive it right now. I can hear the whistle. And I mean, I can hear, I'm hyperventilating. I hear stuff. And I believe that's my brain just freaking out and stuff. But something, I don't know what it was, something told me, do not get away from the road. And I'm glad I didn't. I don't know. Was it paranormal? I don't know. Was it Bigfoot? I have no idea.
Yeah. I think personally it was Sasquatch, because before I had my encounters, I had this experience where they triangulated around me and they whistled. Real sharp, loud whistle, like
yeah,
real loud. What did the whistle sound like? The one
that it was like a high, yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I heard, real loud.
Yeah,
which people say those are birds, but this was like intelligent. Like you could tell somebody was watching you from the woods.
Well,
I thought it was a poacher, a trespasser, somebody messing with me. That's how how startling it all was.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I didn't know what it was either. I mean, after that, I did research and I heard of this lady in the Himalayan mountains that got picked up by Sasquatch. And she said whenever she woke up, because she passed out, there was a Sasquatch looking at her and it whistled at her. And if you look at the Native American totem poles of the Sasquatch, they kind of look like they're whistling. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
you know?
Yep. That's the
It's
truth.
weird. And they'll be like dual toned. Like sometimes like it'll sound like it's high pitched
And
low.
low.
Like real strange.
Yeah, and that's what's freaky about that is I've heard that so many times.
Yeah.
Even right over here behind my house.
It'll give you
This
chills,
was
man.
just like 6-7 months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when it happens, and I don't care what anybody says. At first, when people wouldn't believe me or something, it bothered me because I'm not crazy. And then I got to the point I don't care. Then I start thinking, I hope it happens to you. And then I start thinking, that ain't right. That's not right. You don't want it to happen to you. I didn't ask to see none of this shit.
Right, because you think of what you went through and how much it changed you and traumatized you, and I mean, it would give anybody, problems as far as like how you perceive reality.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's what's hard to swallow is as a kid, you figure out, when you're young, you're afraid of the dark. Oh, monsters ain't real.
Mm-hmm. This changed the game. You said that you thought this was normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole life.
Mm-hmm.
My whole life. You could ask anybody in my family, and my sister turned me on.
Yeah.
To your show.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, she said, you got to listen to this, bub. She said, everything that you've talked about your whole life and stuff, you listen to this. And his encounter was different than mine. I know they're real, and when you hear, you can tell the BS from the real stuff. Because like right now, I'm so nervous because I can slow myself down and take myself right back to that place, and it's almost like you're literally reliving it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's messed up.
So after the whistle incident, what was the next experience that took place?
Well, the next one would have been roughly around 10 or 11 years later, in pretty much the same region, no more than, God, all this stuff within 30 or 45 minutes, you're in the general area of everything. But the next one is, me and my dad was hunting this place that had permission, and had went up there the previous weekend before that and hunted and stuff. And then the next weekend, my dad couldn't go. And I can't remember if it was a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, but anyway, I was by myself. And I go up there and it was the fifth bench. And then probably if you take that top bench and you was to measure up how high the ridge top was, it had probably been 80 to 100 feet higher. They always called it a gap. They always said there's a gap up there, but it wasn't a gap. There was a low place like a saddle, but there was this trail that kind of paralleled and went up. Miguel, I'm talking about this thing is trenched out. It looks like a cattle trail or a motorcycle trail, and there's no leaves in it. I mean, something is wearing this trail out. And so, but anyway, let me back up. So I go up there that morning. I'm there an hour before daylight, and get up in a tree, and don't see nothing. I seen my first coyote close to me, and if anybody knows coyotes, man, them things are constantly moving. And I thought, man, that's pretty cool. And about 11 or 11:30, I get down, and there's limestone everywhere. This region's limestone, cedars, and white oaks and stuff. So I get down, I'm sitting there eating lunch, and it just clicked in me. I was like, hey, I ain't never been up there. I'm going to go up there. And it wasn't but about 50, 60 yards from me where the trail went up. So I thought, I'm going to move my tree stand. I take it, I go up the side of the mountain and get up there on top. The ridge runs from left to right. The left side runs out there, I would say a half a mile or so, and it actually wise off. It turns and drops down over the road where I was telling you the cedar trees are broke, and then the other one wise off and goes the other way. The ridge to the right goes out 100 yards or 150 and turns and drops off next to this holler. So I get up there and I'm looking around trying to figure out, and I see some horned trees on this ridge top. It's pretty wide. And I thought, heck yeah, man, here's the place. I set up, I go up the tree. I'm up there maybe an hour or two. I got my little binoculars, man. I'm looking down. I notice this finger ridge running down, and I'm looking. There's horn trees all down it. And I thought, crap, man, I'm in the wrong spot. I come down the tree real quiet. I'm being real quiet because it was dry and sunny that day. And so I start working my way down that ridge. I left my tree stand sitting there. I was going to move it, but I left it sitting there, and I had my bow in my left hand. It had an arrow knocked in, released on my wrist, grunt call around my neck, and I had my rattle antlers. And so I made the first call up there, and I hear something, but it's way off. And so I moved on down, and I'm real quiet. I grunt, hit them horns again, and it gets louder. And about that time, all this probably takes place within less than 5 minutes. And I hit that grunt call. And about the time that I hit, I can still relive this. As soon as those antlers, and I hit them hard, but as soon as they touched, this thing come off the hillside running. And you could see there was a bunch of beech and white oak, a bunch of young growth in there. But you could see the stuff moving. This thing's come running down the hill. No vocalizations or nothing. Just at a dead run. Sounds like somebody's driving a truck off the side of the damn mountain. And it comes down and up about a third of the way. And I'm looking straight over the hill at 12 o'clock. And it comes within 60 to 80 yards. Straight ahead, 12 o'clock down over the hill. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm about to kill the world's biggest buck. This thing's huge because it's got to be to make this much noise. So I'm standing here, but all this sound like a tornado's coming, come down and up part of the way, and it goes deathly quiet. And I'm like, oh man. So I'm getting ready. I'm easing around. I'm thinking, dadgum, I got them antlers hanging there. How am I going to get a shot off? But I don't care. I'm going to try to do something. And about that time, at about the 10 o'clock position, there's a beech tree there. It's huge. I mean, hell, it's, I don't know, 36, 40 inches in diameter. I mean, it's massive. And that tree ain't 30 yards from me. This thing comes around, it don't peek around. It comes all the way around the tree, but when it comes around the tree, it's got its right hand up on the tree, looking straight at me, but it's so puzzled. Its eyes are squinted, huge brow line right here. I mean, huge, and big cheeks. But it's coming around and it's looking at me. It's black, face, weathered gray, and it's looking at me. It's so confused. And I'm thinking, what in the hell am I looking at? I'm looking down over the hill, and this thing comes around the tree. Like I said, it don't peek around. It comes all the way around. And it is so confused. That's the only way I can distinguish. You can read people's facial expressions. This thing is huge. And it is looking straight at me. I ain't 30 yards from it. This thing is looking at me like that. And it ain't rocking its head. It's kind of moving side to side slowly. I can see its chest moving in and out, in and out. And I remember my brain was about to short out because it was playing the thoughts in my head. What is going on? Why are you here? Why ain't you? I could expect something that big coming out from where I heard it stop. How the hell did it get up the hill 70 yards right by me? I don't understand. It come out of nowhere. And I'm sitting, we're having a stare off. This is a 3 to 5 minute stare off. And I'm looking at it and really, all reality stops. Your brain is trying to function, but it's shutting down. Your body's locked up. I can still remember my knees knocking, and I can still hear them horns just clinking from me shaking so bad. And this thing's looking at me, and about that time, it's got its hand up there on that tree. This thing starts to lean down, but as it's leaning down, the hand really don't slide. That's what I'm saying. These arms look like they're 7 or 8 feet long. This thing keeps its hand on that tree, but reaches to the ground. I never took my eyes off its eyes, but I could hear its hand hit the leaves, and it was moving around. And I'm thinking, but as it was going down, I'm thinking in my brain, I was trying to rationalize, oh, this is a bear, and it's getting ready to go down on all fours. Hell no. No, sir. This thing, I don't know what it was doing, but it was so confused. I call it confused. I don't know what it was. but it was moving around. I don't know if it was trying to throw something at me. I'm camoed out. I mean, boots, bow, arrows, face paint. My eyes are blacked out, gloves, everything. And I'm uphill at this thing, probably about a 3-to-1 slope. Probably would have been about the angle of it. But when this thing come back up, its right hand never come off the tree until it come back up. But when it come back up, its face went from a squinting, puzzled look. Its face melted. It's just dropped. You could see its cheeks while it was squinting. Everything just dropped. The mouth dropped. Around it, the cheeks and stuff just dropped. And when it dropped, and when it started taking form again, that's when the first thing entered my mind, this is the devil, this is demonic as hell. I don't know what I'm looking at. But when it dropped, it started changing shape from a puzzled look to pissed off. This thing, and its breathing's getting more. I mean, I can see it, and my body's shutting down. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Why are you not there? What the hell's going on? Why am I seeing this? And about the time when its hand come off the tree, that's when it clicked reality for me. I got to get the hell out of here. I turned with my left hand. I got my bow, and I've got my right hand, and I'm digging up the hill just as fast as I can go. And I mean, it's the worst. It's the worst feeling. And I mean, I'm being honest. That day was a living nightmare like it was when I was 7. You have no control over anything. And
it's all right. Take your time. So you think possibly this Sasquatch thought you were a buck? Because you were wearing camo.
Oh, yeah.
You were
I was imitating.
rattling the horns.
Yeah.
You grunted too?
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean,
he thought he was coming into
Oh,
a deer.
he thought he had a meal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, but I'm digging up that hill, man, and I'm thinking, you know, my life didn't flash before my eyes. I thought I was dying. I thought I was going to die. And I get to the top of the hill, and I look, it ain't at the tree no more. It's coming at me. But when it was coming at me, it was the most sinister damn look I've ever seen in my life. This thing was in a sneak tuck, coming up that hill like it was ready to pounce. And its face, I mean, if anybody would have seen what I have, you'd be messed up your whole life too. I mean, it was messed up, dude.
So he was confused, like kind of squinting his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to figure out what the heck, where's this deer? And once he figured out it was you, he was pissed.
He was pissed, man. And I get to the top of the hill, and there's so, I don't know if it's the way your brain shuts down, but I start seeing flashes like still pictures of it's playing too, but it seems like you're watching a video, but you have these pictures that pop up in these videos of flash and time and this and that. When I crest the hill and I look back, I can see him coming. I can see his head and shoulders, and he's still down over the hill. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this thing is 8 or 9 feet tall, 4 or 5 feet wide. Its neck looked like somebody cut its neck off and shoved it in its shoulder blade. These muscles right here, the traps or whatever, it looked like logs. But its shoulders, they look like bowling balls. Wasn't a lot of hair around the cheeks. If it had anything above its lip, it was so thin you couldn't see it. But right here, it was real hairy. A little bit thin around the chest. You could see the muscle detail. The skin was ash gray. Real hairy from the waist down. It didn't taper down. This was a big dude. But the muscles, you could see the definitions of all the muscles in its legs, in its arms. And right in here, you could see the hair was 3 or 4 inches long. But right in here, you could see the skin all over it. But this thing had white, blocky teeth, no canines or nothing. When it had its hand on that tree, its cuticle, the pink part, whatever, it was black. This didn't have claws. So I'm cresting the hill, and I turn and look, and I can see his head and shoulders coming up. And like I said, it was unorthodox the way this thing was moving. And I'm running down the hill, and I can hear my heart beating in my ears over my feet hitting the ground. I mean, I'm flying. The arrow comes flying out of the bow. My tree stand's still up there, the rattling horns and a flashlight. And I'm barreling down through, and when I get to the bottom, I've got to make a slight turn to have a straight shot to my truck because I know I've got to make a straight shot because I don't think I'm going to make it. when I turned around, he'd done crested the hill and was down halfway. He was gaining on me fast, but he could have had me before I ever hit top the hill. But what I was telling you yesterday, these things don't run like we do. They don't bounce. They glide. The knees, it's weird, man. Its arms wasn't swinging side to side. Its arms was out like this thing was going to jump. I don't know what it was, but it's got that look. You can see its teeth, and you could just hear it coming out there, just the breathing. You know what I'm saying? But it looked like it was gliding down the hill. It didn't look. It looked paranormal. Is the only thing I can. Because when you watch a human run or an animal run, you know what I'm saying? This thing is coming down the hill, but it looks like it's gliding. And its arms, like I said, its arms were looked like they were 7 feet long. They really did. They was down past the knees, but it had its arms thrown out like it was going to jump. I don't know. I really don't know. I try to slow down and process it, but I really don't know. Yeah. Embarrassing part about it all is I pissed on myself.
Yeah, I hear that a lot when people have an encounter. So this thing was chasing you. Mm-hmm. Okay. How far did you have to go from the tree stand to the truck?
Oh God! Well, where I showed you yesterday, where he went up, it's probably if you straight line it and take out the benches, it'd be 125 to 150 yards.
Yeah.
And when I get to the bottom and I make that slight turn and I look, and this thing looks like it's gliding down the hill. Still with the pissed off look on its face. Man, I am running with everything I got down over that hill. And I get to the second to the last bench. And, you know, like if a tree blows over something and leaves a sinkhole. Well, I stepped in it and I flipped. But I'm running so fast that I flip over on my back and slide down to the first one. And I run to the truck. When I run to the truck, I throw my bow on the ground. I'm digging frantically for my keys. And I keep thinking, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. I figured out it was in my backpack. I get it, open the door, I throw my backpack in there, and I sling the bow through the door. It breaks the side off the bow. I jump in the truck, fire it up, and there's a curve that I showed you. And the whole time I'm thinking, he's waiting on me. He's waiting on me. And when I ran to that curve, he never was. But I look back, he never come off, I don't think the fifth bench or the fourth one. I never seen him. He never dropped no farther than that. I really wasn't looking back much more after that. I was hell-bent on getting out of there. You know, I was just scared to death. Mm-hmm. I really was.
One thing I noticed with the Sasquatch is whenever you find game trails, like you'll have this huge section of woods, but for some reason the deer will use the exact same trails. Like mm-hmm. the same little spot, you got this huge area and they're all crossing. You see that day after day. But the Sasquatch used the same exact trails. And did you notice that with this guy? Was he coming down right down the pipe?
Oh, the same trail I was on, and it kind of maybe, my dad and him maybe thought it was an old Indian trail, because mm-hmm. I mean, you could tell this thing had been there for years. It was wallered out. It had an indention in it.
Like a cattle trail?
Yeah, like this wide. And oh yeah, he come down the same way I did. Mm-hmm. He sure did. But like I said, I go barreling off down over the hill. I get in the truck thinking he's right behind me, and he wasn't. I get in there, and I rip out around that gravel road just flying like an idiot, and he wasn't there. So I go home, and I'm in total denial. I can't sleep for 2 or 3 days and nights. This happens on, like I said, a Saturday or Sunday. Tuesday or Wednesday, my dad calls. He said, "Hey, boy," he said, "you want to go up on mountain hunt this weekend?" I said, "Nah, Dad, I don't want to go up there." I said, "Me and my buddies," I said, "they're all wanting to go to LBL. I'm going to go out there." And I remember he said, "Why in the world would you leave one of the hottest spots?" He said, "People would die to hunt in this spot." He said, "There's deer all over the place." I didn't have the heart to tell him. I didn't. And I thought, I'm going out there with them. And I thought I was running from it. And that's why maybe I lean toward the paranormal, because I don't understand. I thought I was leaving behind hell, and I run right into it the next weekend at Land Between the Lakes. And we get out there, and we're hunting. We make an agreement if anybody sees a young doe to shoot it and tag it for camp meat. And it was, I believe, the second day we were there. I shot one. Hit was a quarter and away shot, about 30, 40 yards. I made a bad shot. I gut shot this deer. But when it tore out over the hill, I knew it was headed toward the trace. And I could see it wasn't going to make it. So anyway, we go back and camp, and it was an evening hunt. And I tell my uncle, I said, take me and my buddy around here and drop us off. And we drive around the trace, and you can see where it come off the hill, blood in the road, and dropped off the other side. So we're good. And it's dark, but I knew the area. So he goes on up the road and finds a place to park and falls asleep. We don't know this is going on. We leave the road, go down over the hill, a bunch of small saplings about the size of a pop can. I mean, they're everywhere in there. There's that deer. We high-five, you know, I give him the tag, and I'm gutting this thing and everything. Boy, about that time, you hear coyotes, wild dogs, just all hell breaks loose with a pack of dogs, coyotes, whatever. And I looked at him, and I told him, I said, man, that ain't good. I said, it sounds like them things are right up there where I shot this and that blood trail is. And it's exactly what happened. And so I'm hurrying up. I'm really speeding up the process. About that time, they're coming. But what was weird, you know, like the call blasting you was doing last night, this is going on the whole time, and you can tell it's advancing toward us. You can hear it come off the hill, but you could hear its claws. Me and my buddy could hear its claws on the asphalt. We climbed 2 trees. The deer ain't 10 feet behind us. These trees are about this big around, and my feet ain't 4 feet off the ground. And I'm thinking the whole time, this damn tree's going to break and I'm going to fall. Like I said, I had a headlamp on. I turned it off. I don't know what good that done, but to me, I was hiding. These things, coyote, wild dogs, whatever the hell it was, come straight to that deer. They're attacking the deer. You could tell they were feeding, but they were fighting amongst each self too. It sounded like they was 10 or 15 of them. It wasn't that many, but these things are 10 feet behind us. I mean, I remember us hollering and screaming. It was just like all hell was breaking loose. And about that time, the same thing I've heard before, just a god-awful scream come up there, and them coyotes, dogs went silent. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. This ain't real. I'm in a living nightmare again. And second vocalization is at the top of the hill across the road. And when this thing come off the hill, it sounded like a boulder flipping when its feet was hitting the ground coming. And you could hear it slap the road like 1 or 2 times. And I said, I can't do this no more. But at this time, when this thing's running off the hill, the wild dogs, coyotes, they took off behind us. You could hear them ripping through the woods. And I said, I can't do this no more. And I bailed out of the tree. And you could look off about 60 yards and you could see the pea gravel on that road that left the trace to the ATV trails and off-road side. It was pitch black, but you could see the glow of the gravel and the little small rocks. And we're bouncing off trees. Headlamp comes, it's still not on, but I remember it flying off. And we get to the road, and I know that the trace ain't but about 60, 70 yards right there. And we run up that road, and we get up there. Didn't know it, but this thing vocalized, woke my uncle up. He's like, what the hell is going on? I remember seeing the headlights come down over a hill. He was flying. Here I am in the middle of the road. I'm waving. I got blood all over me. We're jumping up and down. He pulls up and he said, what the hell's going on? We jumped in the back of the truck and just beat on the glass. Just please go, go, go. He runs up the road about a mile and tries to pull over, and we're saying, no, just go, just keep going. And me and my buddy was in the back of the truck. I mean, I'm in total shock, denial. I can't believe it's going on. I'm crying and stuff. I'm more tore up than he is because he don't know what's happened to me. And he said, my God, Jimmy, what was that? He said, them things. He said, what runs off coyotes? He said, what was that? I said, man, I don't know. I really don't know. And we get back to camp. We're trying to tell everybody, and they're trying to do the same thing when I was 7 years old. Maybe it's a bobcat, maybe it's this, or maybe it was that. But I know reliving it, it was real, and it wasn't no joke, man. Whatever this was scared off a pack of wild dogs, like I said, or coyotes. These things were fighting amongst themselves and attacking the deer at the same time. It was the god-awfulest sound you've ever heard in your life. Just like something that hadn't ate in years. I mean, it was just, and I was the whole time I can't believe it's going on. I'm thinking, hell far, man. I just left out there and I'm right back in this shit again. I don't understand it. What is going on? And
yeah, from the podcast we did, in the past, one guy commented and said, the Daniel Boone National Forest is pretty darn bad if you decided to go to the land between the lakes. You know it's bad.
Yeah.
And do you think they followed you to the area, or you just happened to run into them again?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think they followed. I don't think they followed me. I just, for some reason, this at that age, it kept happening to me. Why, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't ask to see this. Trust me, if I could do it over, I wouldn't want to see none of this shit. It messes with your mind, man. When you see stuff and hear stuff that I have, when everybody tells you that monsters ain't real, the paranormal ain't real, and the devil ain't real, they ain't lived what I lived.
Yeah. No doubt about that. I remember hearing whenever I was a little kid, you better be good or else the devil's going to get you. And it's like, when you run into these things, it brings a whole new meaning to that,
Yeah,
the devil's going to get you. It's like,
yeah,
that's what these things are, they call them like wood devils. And the way they can sneak up on you. And
it's unreal, man.
Yeah, it's
I'm
unreal.
telling you.
Especially like whenever you have so many experiences and you talk to all these other hunters and people and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're seeing stuff. It kind of makes you feel beside yourself, like, is it me? Are they attracted to me? Are they honing in on just me? Am I marked? Am I tagged? Is it something paranormal? Is it just a coincidence that every time I go out there, something happens?
Yeah.
I'm sure you wonder all these questions.
Oh yeah, is it a vibration that people put off? I don't know. Is it a aura? And the paranormal stuff that I've seen and witnessed is just as frightening and horrifying as this Bigfoot, whatever the hell they are.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, my whole life, I thought this was normal. I thought everybody was going through what I did, but they just was like me. They didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to be made fun of.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Whenever I started having a lot of experiences back to back, I almost thought it was normal. Like, I convinced myself that, hey, if I talk to this hunter, he's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if I talk to this person in town, they'll agree with me. Like, yeah, they're out there, but it's just like people look at you like they have no idea what you're talking about. And yeah, I've wondered the same. Like, is it your aura? Is it like your blood type? Do certain people put off like a certain type of pheromone that these things pick up on? I've heard of people like let's say for example, like surfers. They go out into the ocean, they get attacked by a shark. They'll go somewhere else completely different after they heal up and they get attacked by a shark again. And scientists said that they put off a certain magnetic field.
Yes.
And it's like, who knows? Does lightning strike the same place twice?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I always said lightning can't keep striking in the same place as many times it has for me on all this stuff. And I've learned I have to cope with it. I have to deal with it at times. But there's what's the worst part is when you have a nightmare and these things are after you. And I don't care how fast you are, they are so much faster. I've lived this in real life and I've lived it in my dreams, and it's horrifying. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I don't know what they are.
I've heard of that with people who have an actual dogman encounter, a sighting. They claim that they start having these nightmares about them. Do you think that there's something strange going on with that? Like, they get into your dreams?
Yeah, really? That's why I said it's paranormal and this stuff's tied together. Mm-hmm. I've watched them disappear, and there ain't no way in hell that they can do that. But I seen it, and I wouldn't have believed it until I seen it with my own two eyes, buddy.
Okay, so tell me about this encounter where it disappeared. What happened?
Okay, it was, this would have been late 90s.
Yeah, in the Daniel Boone National Forest? Or around?
No.
Okay.
No, it was central Kentucky.
Okay.
Around the Campbellsville, that would be I guess, closest place. But there was a farm up there you could hunt. It was about 3,200 acres, and we'd hunted up there for years, and everybody, has their own spot, and I had this spot out there, and had hunted it for years and never had anything, and then 90, 98 or 99. Yeah. And anyway, I'm out there, and this ridge is 4 or 5 miles long. You ride your four-wheeler out there. I'd always park about at least a mile back because I didn't want to disturb anything. I'd walk out there and get up my tree stand. And the ridge run down and circled out, but there was a little old flat, a white oak flat that dropped off there. And man, the deer would always tear this place up. So I'm in there hunting, and I'm by myself, and go out there at morning and don't see anything, and go out and come back. That evening, I go out there, and when I would bow hunt, I'd always get up at least 30 feet because you could get by with your sense a lot better if you're up that higher, and you can move, you know what I'm saying. So about close to 5 o'clock, and I'm looking back out the ridge that I've come. The road's up here, and I'm down below it, probably about 40 or 50 yards where it drops off. And I can hear something walking out through there. And my first reaction was, it's either one of my buddies or it's a hunter, because you could tell it was a bipedal. It was somebody walking. And I hear it leave the road. When it left the road, it got louder because it got in the dry, crunchy leaves. This thing comes down. I'm about 40, 50 yards off the road, I guess. And this thing leaves the road. And it's coming down through there, and you can hear it as plain as day. This thing is walking. Never slowed down. This thing come right by me, went out the ridge, and dropped off. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on here? Didn't have no flashbacks of anything else. It was just weird. Am I hearing a squirrel? What am I hearing? You know what I'm saying? Kind of brush it off. It's just one of those weird things that sometimes happens. Next morning, go out there, nothing. Next evening, go out there, the same thing. Right around 5 o'clock, you can hear it coming. You can hear it leave the road. Goes right by me, down over the hill. And I'm thinking, now, okay, this is 2 days in a row. Something's not right here. Is this paranormal? That's what Bigfoot never entered my mind, or did I see anything? And I'm puzzled by it. And the paranormal stuff is I don't know why I've always had a lot of experiences with it, but that's where my mind was going with this. Because with the Bigfoot things, I put eyes on them. So I in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is paranormal. It's ghost. It's like a tape recorder. It's playing. And I don't say nothing to camp. Go back. Next morning, nothing. Same evening, to the T. Here it comes again. Same thing. Well, this time I'm up and ready. You can hear it walking. This thing is not 20 yards from my tree now. And I'm up 30 feet. That's at my feet. My head, I'm 6'3", so I'm up there good. It comes right under the tree, goes down over the hill, and this little flat is probably 90 yards long, drops off to where all these other finger ridges is, and there's a creek that runs to the lake. And I'm thinking, this something's wrong. It's got to be paranormal because this is replaying. It's like a tape recorder. I don't stay to dark. I'm spooked at this time. Nothing happens or nothing like that crazy at this point. I go back to camp, and I can't take it. I said, boys, I got to tell you something. I started telling them, he's laughing at me. I thought, well, that's what you get for saying something. And my buddy said, I'll go out there with you. He said, I ain't seeing no deer. He said, I'll be glad to go out there. Kind of laughing it off because they was wanting to come out there where I was hunting. So he said, in the morning I'll hunt my spot. And he said, around lunch I'll bring tree stand in. And that evening I'll go out there with you. I said, okay. And so the next morning, then lunch comes and we come into camp and we eat. And I told him, I said, well, let's go ahead and go since we're going to have to walk out there and put your tree stand up. I said, I want to go in extra earlier today because they were moving good in the middle of the day. So we go out there. We're 60 yards apart, face to face with bows, not guns. And I told him, I said, see this tree right here? If the deer's on your side, you shoot it. If it's on mine, it's mine. And he said, all right. So I get up, and I'm going up in the tree, and I get up where I've got my easy hanger where I'm hanging my stuff, my bow and my backpack. And I look, and this knucklehead that's scared of heights, his head ain't 20 feet high. And I keep thumbing him up like that. I'm thinking, God almighty, man, at least get higher. He may have cracked the 20-foot mark with his feet, but that was it. He was scared to death. And so I thought, well, whatever. And probably this is about 1:30 when we get out there, maybe 2 o'clock when finally we're in the stands. And about 3:34, between 3:30 and maybe 4:30, probably around the 4 o'clock mark, best I remember. 3 does, they come under me. And I'm just looking down at them, bows hanging here, and I don't even move. And I look over at him, and he's getting agitated. Why ain't you shooting? I wasn't there to hunt. I was there to prove a point. Well, these deer come by me, but they're on my side of the tree. You can tell he's agitated, wanting to shoot. They feed off, and it ain't 5 minutes. Here comes a 6-pointer on my side of the tree. I don't even stand up, and I look over, and he's beside himself. You know what I mean? Because I'm not shooting and everything, and he's, giving hand signals, and the deer's looking around. They wasn't looking up. Hit feeds on off, and I can tell he's pissed. I thought, well, we're going to see here. Well, it gets up about 5 o'clock. Nothing's happening. And it's about a little after 5, maybe like 5 or 10 minutes after 5. And maybe about 5 after. And I'm thinking, something ain't right. And about that time, I see his head wheel around. And I'm thinking, he sees a deer. So when his head wheels around, I could see he's looking, and I'm thinking he's seeing something move on the other side of the road. And then I see him stand up, but he ain't reaching for his bow, and he's looking. And then about the time I hear it leave the road, and I thought, here we go. Sure enough, that thing comes, and he's turned looking at it, and he's following it down, and I'm looking at this angle back at him, and I'm looking at a downward angle because I'm 10 feet higher than him. And it gets right, and I'm watching him follow it, and I see him pull his binoculars up. Well, I'm trying to stand up, and when he does, I'm reaching for mine. It's hanging right here on my stand. And then I thought, I'm going to whistle. When I whistled, that thing stopped like that. And when it did, I was thinking, holy shit, this ain't never happened. It ain't never stopped. It was like a tape recorder. It just went on by and never done nothing. I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, and I'm pointing down. He's like nodding his head, yeah, and I'm thinking, it ain't never done this. What is this? And about that time, it takes off again. Probably goes maybe 20 yards and stops. And his binoculars is on. He's got his up, and I'm looking. You could see the leaves moving 4 to 5 feet apart. You could see them flip up like compress. And I'm thinking, I'm seeing chipmunks or something under the leaves. That's what's popping up. Or is this a snake or whatever? No, and it goes on out there. Probably gets to my 3 o'clock position. And he's looking, and I'm looking at it. And I can whistle real loud, and I whistle. And when I did, this damn thing, whatever the hell it was, tore off, running down over the hill, just tearing up shit, just crashing like just running crazy. I look back over at this knucklehead. He's done freaked out. I'm freaked out. He's coming down the tree as fast as he can. I'm thinking he's going to fall and kill himself. He gets down to about 10 feet, throws his bow, and jumps out of his tree stand. He don't even pick his bow up. He's running back to the four-wheeler. And I'm thinking, this idiot's leaving me. And about that time, a big loud crash. About the time he hits to the road, a big loud crash happens over the hill where this thing went. And when he turned around, the look on his face was just, it was pure terror. It really was. Never seen, I don't know what happened that day. I really don't. And I'm thinking, this idiot's going to leave me here. And I'm coming down the tree as fast as I can. I get down 3 or 4 feet, I bail off, grab my bow, it's on the string, unhook it. I run over and grab his, and I'm running up there, and I'm hollering, hey man, wait, don't leave me here, just wait. And I heard the four-wheeler fire up. It goes ripping out through her, and I thought, hell, he's left me. So I'm barreling up there, carrying 2 bows, and put it on the four-wheeler, and I turn around and go ripping out through there. And there's a sharp left-hand curve. This idiot run out of the road and turned over. And I thought he was hurt. And I get up there, and we flipped the four-wheeler back over. And I said, man, are you all right? He said, no, man. He said, Jimmy, what the hell was that? I said, I told you I wasn't lying. He said, I know you're not lying. He said, what is that? I don't know, man. I said, the only thing I can think of is paranormal because it was just, I said, but what's bad is that the 3 days before that, it hadn't never stopped. And so we get back to camp. He shook up, I'm shook up, and there's another buddy. He thought he was pretty tough, and he said, all right, boys. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll go out there. So he goes out there. I go back out there the next morning and hunt, but when I do, I bring my tree stand out at lunch because I'm not going back. I wasn't afraid of the morning because I seen deer, but I never did see or hear nothing crazy. that evening he goes out there, and he's back an hour before dark and comes ripping into camp. He said, boys, it's time to go. And I'm saying, man, what's going on with you? He said, no. He said, I'm ready to leave. He said, we're leaving in the morning. He said, I'm leaving now. He said, ain't no sense in staying here. And I stopped him. I said, what is going on? He said, the same thing you said. He said, at about 5 o'clock, this thing come out of the road and come right by me. It didn't stop or anything like it done with my other buddy when I whistled. But he said the thing walked right by, and he said, I could see the leaves pushing down. He said this thing, whatever it was walking. And he comes back into camp all tore up. And so that was it. I ain't been back out there since.
Yeah. So you could never see the creature.
Nothing.
It
It was invisible. It was almost like if you've seen those TV shows where they do the paranormal hunting about how they see an apparition, how it's like on a tape loop. It just plays. It don't matter if you're there or whatever.
Okay.
I thought this was that until I whistled and it stopped. So if it's a recorder, how can you stop a recorder and it stop walking?
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, it was. I think I've just been around the paranormal more so than a lot of stuff. And like I said, I don't ask to see this stuff. I really don't. And if I had to take it back and I could trade it with somebody, I don't know if I'd do that because I wouldn't want them to go through what I went through. Because like I said, this alters your every way of thinking about what's supposed to be real and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people describe like the predator, how it's invisible, and it's kind of what's going on out there in the forest. And I told you about how I experienced the same thing, where it'll be wintertime, 30 or 40 yards into the woods from the yard, and you could hear like a big lumberjack walking. Middle of the day, sunny. You can see the beams of light hitting the woods.
Yeah.
And since it's wintertime, you can see all the way down into the holler, and it's right there in the woods. What does that?
I don't know.
And the guy's been having Sasquatch activity. There's been sightings. They come up to the house, so that's what it's got to be.
I don't know.
They're advanced beings is how I think of it. I mean, they may be hairy. They can kill deer, dig into trash cans, pick a dog off, a dead dog off the side of the highway, but they're advanced. They could be connected to the alien phenomenon. It could be its own thing. Maybe they are just physical creatures, but there's a lot more to it. There's a reason why they don't tell us what's going on.
Well, I'm living proof that they're more than just some stupid ape walking around the woods. Mm-hmm. You would have had a hard time to convincing me, other than that. And, I'll tell the one that happened with me and my nephew. We're up on the mountain, that ridge I'm telling you that runs off there and drops off right into where we was at when I was 7 years old. This has been probably 10 years ago. Anyway, I hadn't been in that area there to where it drops off down in the river 15, 20 years. I just didn't have no desire to go back. Have a nephew, I said, hey, I'm going to go up there and scout this out. We get out of the truck, and you can't tell this ridge is there. It looks like where it's got a saddle out there, it looks like it draws in, it's real thick, and you can't see beyond it. We get out of the truck, we ain't out of the truck 20 minutes, and we're walking out through there, and I see a trail. Trail's 4 or 5 feet wide. You can tell where some bear had been active or something, because there was where the pine beetles had been in there, they was just stuff tore up. But I noticed on the right-hand side of that trail, anywhere from 8 to 12 feet up, there's just, I don't know, and probably, I don't know how many of a yard span it was. There were 6 or 8 of these trees. They were fresh broke off, pointing out the ridge. And at the time, even then, I wasn't watching any YouTube or didn't understand or know about the tree breaks or anything. So I'm thinking that's a bear. And he said, Uncle Bub, what would do that? And I said a bear, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, no, wait a minute, bears can't do that. If a bear gets on a sapling that big, it's going to ride it to the ground. It ain't going to break it off way up. But none of this had entered my mind. We're going on out through there. The trail starts to narrow down, but you could see on out through there, you could see these things are broke off, and they go on out that ridge. Like I said, it funnels into a bunch of ivy, and it's real thick, and it looked like it dead ends. This ridge is a mile long at least. And so we get out through there, and I'm using hand signals and just trying to be real quiet. But I told my nephew, I said, if we encounter a bear, whatever you do, do not run. He said, okay. So we're going on out there, and like I said, it narrows in. And then I stop, and he runs into the back of me. I could hear something in front of me up there, probably about 40, 50 yards. I could hear something moving around. And everything is in between 8 to 12 feet. All this young sapling, it's a bunch of new growth coming up. I see something come up. I don't know if it was a bear. I don't know what it was. It was not looking at us. It was looking out the ridge. But whatever it was anywhere between 7 and 9 feet. You could see. If it was a bear, I couldn't understand. You couldn't see no ears. He's right here over my shoulder. He's having a hard time seeing it, but you could see it. Only thing you see was the upper body part. And then when it drops down, that cat, I turn and I'm trying to get him to back up. Like, we need to go back this way. So what is it? I said, I think it's a bear. And I turn around, and he's getting it up there. And I'm saying, man, don't run, don't run. And get up there, and we get back there, and I'm thinking to myself, I stayed away for all these years and come back. And was it a bear? Yeah, it could have been. If it was a bear, it didn't have no ears or they were laid back. But I'm just saying, it don't happen every time I go out. Because if it did, I'd never go back. But it's just weird coincidences that there's just these few spots in these areas that I know that you can go and see weird stuff, man. I don't know what it is. And that's, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, yeah, you should have just stayed away. Then maybe that's what you need to do. Yeah, the next one I'll tell you about was down at the campsite we was at last night. Me and my wife go down there, and about the middle of April, cool in the mornings, summer or the daytime's getting hot, and you're getting a few pop-up thunderstorms. So we go up there and camp, and we pull in, and you've seen how it was up there. They got the little timbers to outline it with the real fine pea gravel. Well, I'm leveling these pea gravel off. And I throw up the tent and doing stuff. She's getting stuff out of the truck. And when pulled in, there was nothing there. Like last night, you could see trash in where you can do the fire for your food or whatever. And the weeds around the edge wasn't as tall because, like I said, this is the 1st of April. It was a lot different. The trees were just starting to leave out. You could see a lot better. And I set up the tent, and my dad sent a solar rope light because she's terrified of snakes. I mean, she's terrified of them. And Dad said, well, the old timers would say they won't cross a line or a light or anything like that. So he gave us for me to put behind the tent. She wasn't worried the fire was in the front. She was worried about the back of it. So I get that done, and I'm piddling around. And she said, where'd you get them shoes? I said, what are you talking about? What shoes? She said, right there. And no more than 5 feet from the tent and me laying a rope light out, there's 2 shoes laying there that looked like it had been dipped in the creek, had water in them, and she's a witness to this. Them shoes wasn't there when we pulled in. It was not there. And I'm thinking she's playing a trick on me. She's thinking the same thing to me. And I said, I ain't touched them shoes. She said, I ain't either. And then I realized she's telling the truth because I see she's getting spooked, and I am. They wasn't there. But I'm telling you, they looked like a size 6 or 7. It was no cheap Walmart brand. Kind of looked like a Converse Chuck, but they wasn't. They were that cloth blue, you know what I'm saying, with the white soles and the white around the sides. That's what they looked like. But these things were wet, and you could see water drip marks, but they had water in the shoes. And I'm thinking, what in the world's going on here? And in the back of my mind, I'm trying to rationalize they were there and I just didn't see them. No, they wouldn't, because I'd raked the travel off the edge where they were sitting. So this is going on back in my mind. I'm thinking, here comes this paranormal crap again. Now she's getting to see it. So I blow it off, and she's still puzzled about them shoes. And I said, I'm not touching those shoes. I'm not. And so I'm trying to occupy my mind to get her to calm down. We get the fire going. We're cooking hot dogs. The tent's to my back, fire pit, you know what I'm talking about, then them rocks, and then my truck was sitting there, and she's on the other side, she's just poking at fire. And this is probably about 10:30, and I hear the first scream. And it starts out low, but it gets up real high and holds at 8, or not 8, but 10 to 15 seconds, just, and then it just drops off. And I hear it at the same time she hears it. She don't react, and I didn't either. I'm like, what in the world? It was just a weird sound. I'd never heard nothing like that. And about that time, she's still poking the fire. I don't know if it had turned our way or come our way. It was louder. And she was poking, and she stopped. She looked at me, and she said, "Hun, what was that?" I said, "I don't know what that was." She said, "Why would there be sirens up here?" I said, "There's no sirens up here." And it probably, not even a minute goes by. This time it's way louder, and you can tell it's closer. It wasn't farther away. This time it was closer, like the coyotes last night. You can tell when they close the distance. And it does it again, and she's freaking out. And I said, "There's somebody up here. They're goofing off." I said, "Get in the truck. We'll go up there." Well, that road goes way up through there. I would say from where we're at, 5 to 7 miles to where it ends. Drive all the way up there. There's nobody there. So as I'm driving up there, I get to this one spot that I know that's where the sound come from, and that's where I found the tombstone rock. And I'm thinking, there's somebody up here. Drive up there and back. There wasn't. She gets back. She said, "Hon, why don't we just go ahead and go home?" I said, "It'll be all right." This time it's 11 o'clock or after. I said, "I'm going to get this fire raging," and I did, man. I had that thing roaring. We go in there, and I'm tuckered out. I go to sleep. I didn't know it, but she was awake. And about that time, she hit me in the chest with everything she had, and I come up out of that bed, and she's sitting up. She's scared to death. I said, "What is it?" She said, "Somebody's in camp." And, you can imagine being asleep, and then somebody tell you somebody's in your camp. I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I could hear them talking." She said, "They're whispering." Said, "It's 2 people." Said, "You can't make out what they're saying, but they're behind the tent." I said, "Well, how long has this been going on?" She said, "It's been going on for 30 minutes. She said, "You can hear them. It's garbled, but you can't tell what they're saying." Man, I get my headlamp on, and I come ripping out of that tent, and I go running back the same trail you was on last night that you thought you heard something back there.
Yeah, sound like 2 people.
I run back there, and then I got back there, and I thought, "You're stupid." Cause I see she's worked up, and she don't fake or joke around like that. She's like me. I'm serious when it comes to this stuff. I don't want no bad juju over it. You know what I mean? I don't mess around with this stuff. I go back up her. She said, "Can we just go?" I said, "No, it'll be all right. I promise it'll be all right." And we lay back down. But anyway, before I go back to the tent, across the road, you seen how close the road was to the camp? But across the road, you could hear something pacing up through there. And in the back of my mind, never Bigfoot or nothing crazy like that never entered my mind. I figured it was like a coyote or something, deer or anything, because you could just hear it moving. And I thought maybe I'd spooked it. Get back up there in the tent and lay down. But the whole night before that, or the whole evening leading up to that, she loves whippoorwills. She said, "Oh, I'd love if we could just hear a whippoorwill." And you remember where the graveyard was? Mm-hmm. That's where it fired up at. And this sucker come plumb into camp. And it was, it wasn't 10 feet away, and it was a whippoorwill just making it. We was laughing. That's after everything goes on. She falls asleep, and I'm laying there, and then that's when I start hearing. You couldn't hear it moving, but you could tell it was traveling down the creek and up the creek. And you seen how the creek was up, and it had that ledge on it. I couldn't get across to it the next morning, but all night long, this thing would go. It could have been a bear. I don't know. All night long, back and forth, just all night. I mean, it would probably travel 60 to 80 yards up and down the creek. It never come across, but it would pace up and down. And that's the same side that I told you there's this valley, and that's where the screams come from, and I found that tombstone. So next morning, we're gone. And get back, and she tells her mom. Her mom says, "Oh, Lord, you should never went up there. That place is haunted." Said, "I've heard my mom and dad talk about that place." Well, we tell my mom and dad. And a few days go by, and Dad said, "Hey, bud," he said, "you get a chance to stop out by here." He said, "I want you to listen to something." I go out there. He's got it on YouTube or something, and he finds some Sierra sounds about this where it starts out, holds it real high. And I said, "Oh, my God, that's it." I said, "That is it to a T." Ours was a little bit longer than that one, not much, but just sounds like a tornado siren. That, you know what I'm saying? And so I said, "Dad, hang on." I run to the house, got her, and I said, "Come back." And we walked in, I said, "Have I said anything?" She said, "No, other than you want me to listen to something." And it was the fourth or fifth recording on that. First one played. I got away from her. I didn't want to influence her. I wanted to prove to my mom and dad I wasn't crazy. And it played first one, nothing, second, third. When it hit, she looked at me and Dad and said, that is it. That is it to a T. She said, ours was a little bit longer, but it's the same thing. And that was the sounds that come out of the Sierra. And I mean, I don't know. What kind of animal is it? I mean, I don't know. But I know what we heard, and it sounded like a siren. And I've heard other people talk about how they've heard it sound like sirens in the woods. I mean, what animal can hold a pitch like that long? And I mean, you could hear it resonate up that valley. Just a constant, that, and then it'd drop off, but it wouldn't drop off much. It just dead stopped. Maybe 30 seconds go by, it fired up again. It done it 3 times. And it come out, like I said, the valley where I found the tombstone rock. So anyway, that happened. And the next one's where we was right over here at Lake Cumberland, about midnight. We're over fishing. We're looking up, and no ambient light, but you can look across the lake toward Russell Springs, and you can see Jamestown. You can see the glow. And we'd seen a satellite. You could tell what a satellite is, but if you shooting stars. But about the time she hit me, said, look up. When we looked up, there was that triangle I was telling you about. I said before that it was 5,000 feet. There's no way it was 5,000 feet, because I would say this thing was 1,500 to 2,000 feet, because that's a long distance, you know what I'm saying. But it was a triangle shape. It was darker than the night sky. It was almost like the darkness of a shadow person. It was that black, silent, moving steadily toward the Russell Springs area, and it had 3 distinct little white lights across the back, none on the bottom, and just silently it went over. And she said, what is that? I said, I don't know, but you know what you've seen, don't you? She said, yeah, it's a triangle shape. I said, yeah. There are reports of that. I said, I don't know if it's military, UFO, or whatever. And that's the first time that she'd ever got to see anything like that. It was pretty crazy. She's been with me on those two until we moved to where we are now, and that's when everything got going again. And I think the reason it got going, as I told you about the 2 places I went, found the rock stacks in the tombstone, and all the tree breaks it's twisted over. After that day, I come back up here, all hell breaks loose. It really does. She'd got me a crossbow, and I'd never got to hunting with one. And I was telling you, I was easing out that thicket. It's just right over here. And there's a bluff on the back side. It's the river. And I'm easing out through there. And it's probably a 1/4 mile long. The thicket and the river is to my right. There's a patch of beech trees. And about 100 yards to the left, there's a road. And I'm easing out through there, and I get out to the very end, and I stop, and I'm just looking around, taking it in, looking for deer sign. And about that time, I heard a tree start falling. But this tree never stopped falling. It went for 15 or 20 seconds. And what I didn't realize, it wasn't a tree falling. It was something coming through that thicket toward me. And the reason I know it was coming toward me, looked like 150, 200 blackbirds come ripping out of that cedar thicket over my head. And whatever this was, I don't know if it was deer or whatever, it runs right up to the edge of that thicket within 50 yards of where I'm at. And it scared the hell out of me. And I'm playing in the back of my mind, hit sound, when it started, hit sound. Have you ever been in the woods when you hear trees fall in the woods? I understand that. But I've been in the woods where I've heard them fall a lot where I'm hunting. And I'm thinking, how I thought it was a tree. This ain't a tree. A tree don't fall for 15 to 20 seconds. And then when the blackbirds come over my head, then I rationalized something was running through that thicket toward me. And what it was, I don't know. I call her, and I'm tore up. I said, she said, what's happened? I said, I don't know. And I said, I just heard a tree fall for 20 seconds. And I said, the bad thing about it, it never hit the ground. But what it was ripping through that thicket toward me, because the birds come at me. The birds were at the edge of the thicket. And when you could tell this thing stopped at the edge of the thicket, they come ripping out of there. I call her, I've had enough, I go back. So 2 or 3 days go by. I'm hunting there, and I start hearing whistles. I'm sitting there, and to my left, it's always up there. It's always to my left. I'll look, and I'm thinking, somebody snuck up here, and they see my blind. They see me, so I'm looking. I even get out and move around. This happens for 2 or 3 days in a row. Then I'm sitting up there. I moved spots. I made me a ground blind out of holly bushes. And, I've just got little shooting hose. And the graveyard is to my 9 o'clock position. I see a black 8 to 9, or no. Yeah, probably, 8 to 10 feet off the ground, just a black. And I'm thinking, what was that? So I'm getting spooked and worked up at that time, and I keep hearing the whistling. So I go back and I tell her and stuff, and she starts telling me, hey, when I'm in the house, I hear somebody walk up to me. I said, what do you mean? She said, hon, I can hear them walk through the house, and they walk up within just a few feet of me. And I'm thinking, yeah, where we go again. Because like I said, man, I've had to deal with this my whole life, and I thought it was normal, but it's not. And so I go back up there, and it starts getting crazy now. It's real overcast, and I'm looking straight ahead, and there's a road here, and there's a road that intersects here, and the road that goes out by the thickets where that happened. I look up. This is early January, because you can hunt to the 15th. I see a smoke mist blob descending down through, and you can see it coming down through the canopy where there ain't no leaves. This is headed right down to where that road's coming down over the hill. And I'm thinking, all right, now this is the second day in a row I'm seeing black stuff moving. So I start thinking, well, I'm spooking myself. You're by a graveyard, this and that, blah, 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 whatever. So I don't stay in the dark. I go back and I said, I'm seeing stuff up there. She said, what do you think? It's your imagination running wild? I said, yeah, it could. I said, but I don't think my mind makes up whistling and I see stuff randomly. So she's telling me about, hon, she said, I'm hearing somebody in the house. She said, they walk. She said, you can hear the creaking and it walks up to me. And I said, well, just pray about it. So a day or two goes by. Nothing's really going on. And I go back up there. And that's when I seen the ball of light that started out this big around. Boom, it's on. It's self-illuminating. There's no light coming out anywhere. It's a ball of light. And it is white, real white. And I'm thinking, that's that old man and his son over there. They're deer hunting. I'm seeing cab lights. I get out of the blind and stand up. Totally different spot. This light's here. Their truck is over here where the road's at. This thing's on that little ridge. And I'm standing there looking at it. I'm out in my blind and I'm looking at it. And it's bright, but when you're looking at the light, it's like it never dims, but it's like flickering, but real fast. But you can just tell it's like real bright. You know what I mean? And then about that time, I said it was rods that come out both sides, but it's not. If you ever take a picture of the sun or how they'll draw it on TV, you'll have the little spikes that come up. Well, that's what I seen on both sides of this. But at the widest part was probably 8 to 10 inches. And I could see rainbow colors. And it was like they were real. You know how when you see a rainbow and it's barely visible, but you can make out colors? That's what this was. But they were moving. The lights were like rotating. Is the best way I can just try to explain it. And then it goes poof, it's out, it's gone. And I'm like, what the hell? Did I see ball lightning? Is that what it is? Real overcast, but it hadn't rained. No storms or anything like that. I get spooked, and I think I've got shelter inside my blind, so I get back in there, and I'm looking at this light. And about 40 yards up that ridge up there, I see movement, and I wheel my head around, and I'm looking straight at it. And this thing is huge. It's brown, and it's weaving in between trees. And where I really got a good look at it, and it really scared the hell out of me, was this thing was massive. You could see the side profile, but more of the back right here. You could see the shoulders and arms. Miguel, this tree that it went behind is probably this big around. I never would have believed this when people said that they seen orbs in Bigfoot. I said, well, yeah, I'm not going to say no because I've not seen it, but I swear to God, I seen this light just a minute or two later up the hill. But this thing was moving. It was weird. It was moving in behind trees, but it would go behind trees that it's massively bigger, but it wouldn't, and then it would be there again. But it goes behind this pine tree, but it's like this pine tree's here, and this thing moves behind it. It never comes out the other side. And I said, I can't do it. And I left. I can't run, but I'm getting it back down to the house. I come rushing in. She knows something's wrong. And I see her. She's tore up. I mean, she's about ready to cry. And I'm tore up. I'm trying to process what the hell is going on. What am I looking at? And I'm trying to explain to her, but I know she's more worked up than I am. I said, what is it? She said, hun, she said, while you was up here, she said, just a few minutes ago, she said, somebody hit the side of the house. Said they hit it so hard, it shook the pipes. And I said, what? She said, yeah. And I went outside, and you could see where mud was slung up against the house, probably on the back side of the house. It's probably about 12, 14 feet up, but you could see where mud had hit the back of the house. And then I started telling her about what I had seen, and what was so messed up about this was this apparently happened around the same time. Now, how do you explain that? It's not just me telling stories. I don't have stories. I have encounters, but now my wife is seeing this same stuff. And so it was either that evening or the next evening, I got to hear the movement in the house. I personally did. And I come up out of bed. You could hear somebody walking down the friggin' hallway. And I got up and there was nothing there. And I went to praying out loud. And we ain't had no more problems. So that's why I'm talking about. I don't know why I see what I see, but I think it's got something to do with paranormal, or they coincide, or it's a world that we have no understanding about. Because I've tried to research it and tried to grasp it and everything, and I can't. I can't.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And whenever I told my encounters, that's what I talked about. I was having paranormal activity at my house. I'd go outside and see these strange lights up in the sky that were moving around the house. There was Sasquatch activity out in the back. And this wasn't all happening at the same time, but let's say for like months, there's strange paranormal stuff happening every other week, every other day. And then during the summertime, there's this strange thing that barrels through the woods. It sounds like a truck moving through the woods.
Yes.
Trees and limbs snapping, and it just stops at the edge of the wood line. Whenever I was at the river, I got screamed at right after a huge tree came crashing down. And it's not all happening back to back. Like each day I'm having something happen just here and there, throughout your life. And I feel like there is a connection. There's other worlds that we can't see, or I don't know. Like Joe says, we're like sloths to these creatures. We're their retarded brothers.
Yeah, we ain't in the same realm as them. They're on another level. Mm-hmm. They really are. And that's, the area I was telling you about up there on the back side of the mountain. This was just 2 months ago. We go driving out through there, and we get out there, and I stopped and had to get out and use the bathroom about 11, 12 o'clock. Dead silent. No wind, no sound, no nothing. And I remember her saying she wouldn't get out of the truck and use the bathroom. And she said, hon, what is that? She said, is that normal? I said, no. I said, usually when it goes quiet, there's some kind of predator around. So I just had I had a bad feeling. Every hair on my body is standing up, but I didn't want to scare her. So I go on out the end of that road and turn around where I sent you a picture of that hair. I found that footprint and that bear track or wolf track or whatever it was. When I get out there and turn around, there's a gate that drops off to the river. When I get out there, where the road drops off, it's like a power line. You can see out through there. Well, way across, I could see lights, red and white lights. Back of my mind, I thought, cell tower, I'm back up and leave. I go back, I don't go a quarter mile. I see an orb on my side. I didn't know it at the time. She was seeing over here. the headlights on my truck go out like that. And I thought, what the hell's going on? The truck's running just fine. The lights go out. I grab my headlamp off my head. I shine it out the window, and I keep driving out there. I'm going out there pretty fast, and I said, I was seeing lights. She said, yeah, I seen them too. I said, yeah, you seen it on my side? She said, no, they were on my side. She said, they're about the size of a tennis ball. Truck lights come back on. We leave and ride around the rest of the night and go home. Next weekend, we go back to where I showed you last night where that curve was. We was coming back, and in the curve, you could see where I was talking about. There was nothing standing on the yellow line on the other side of the road. You got two yellow lines on your side and that side. There was nothing there. And when my truck got to it, I seen something, and I didn't know what it was at first, but it was almost to the top of my headlights to the bottom of the hood, right against, it ain't this far from the edge of my truck. And as I'm driving by, I look down, and it's an owl. This tall. Owls don't get this big. This thing, you can see its eyes. Its eyes were gloss. It looked like a piece of black glass that had like you could see the reflection of the shine of the light off of it or something. But the circles around each eyes were jet black, and the colors didn't look right. And as we was driving, I'm freaking out, and it scared the hell out of her. But I'm trying to think about how tall it was, and I remember the ears on that thing was only 4 or 5 inches under the side mirror on my truck. So that would put that thing at least 40-something inches off the ground. And yeah, that scared me. I said, that's it. I got to go home. I said, I don't want to do this no more. Because it was, I mean, people can say, oh, he's just telling stories or whatever. No, I got witnesses. And then one thing I did leave out was when I've been to Florida twice this year, and I told you about the multiple owl calls in the middle of the daytime. I know owls mate, and they make the calls and crazy sounds. This went on for 4 hours, and I've got 3 witnesses on that. The guy from Ohio said, what the hell is that? I said, owl calls. He said, that ain't owl calls. You could hear some like we heard last night that was distinct, and you could hear something that was imitating these sounds. So, and we're trying to beat the rain because I'm putting a metal roof on this. I wish I'd had a recorder. But that night when we go to bed, I'm staying in the house I'm working on. They got a big, nice camper sitting here in front of the yard. It's got all these huge live oak trees, big old limbs with old man's beard hanging everywhere. Something come from across the road, he said, making the weirdest sounds. It spooked them so much. And their campers here in the driveways, here in the house, sitting back here. It was headed straight to the house, whatever it was. He comes out with a flashlight and everything and a weapon, a pistol and stuff. And he said he can't explain the sounds it was making. And it spooked him, and he said it went back across the road. But I didn't know this till the next morning. And that day, though, we heard the owls.
What part of Florida was this in?
Reddick.
Okay.
It's in between Ocala and Gainesville. It's 15 minutes from Williston.
There's a lot of Bigfoot reports from Ocala.
So, what was crazy, here's the owl thing 4 or 5 months ago. It didn't happen the first time. Yeah, it did. It was the very first trip down there. I heard the owl calls, and that's when something come up the driveway. Then I went back. Nothing happened. But then just a month or so ago, over here, I see another owl. What did we see last night in the graveyard? And that just could be an owl sitting in a graveyard on a tombstone. I don't know.
That was weird, but, you know, I was looking down. I think Joe was fiddling with something, and you're like, what is that in the middle of the road?
Yeah.
And by the time I looked up, it had taken off, and you told us where to turn, where it went. And I had the thermal. I saw something big and round, and when I finally got Joe to stop and go back, I didn't see it anymore. So we drove up to the little cemetery, and there's an owl sitting there.
Like I said, I'm in the back seat. I'm thinking you two are seeing this, but Wayne's reacting, and that's why I kind of freaked out. I was like, what the F is that? Because you could see it. It was on your lane of the gravel road, and it crossed the middle, but it was weird. You could see it, and you couldn't see it. You could see it, and you couldn't see it, and then you could see it real good. It turned and went up to the left, but it didn't look back the way it was going. It turned and looked back over the right shoulder. Mm-hmm. And then that's when it went up the hill. And then when we turned and went up there, that's when you caught it on the therm.
Yeah.
Could it have been a panther? I don't know. But
that
it
was
was
the
black.
area where you and your wife were camping. And
Yeah, just like 400 or 500 feet.
Okay. Well, I think that was one of the strangest spots that we were at yesterday. Whenever I went down those steps, down to the creek, I heard something big, like move off in the water and walk off into the woods. The coyotes reacted to the Foxborough
Yeah,
game
that was
caller.
awesome.
There was something across the road. We hit it with thermal. We think it was a bobcat or a big rabbit, but it came back. It
Yeah,
was
but
there.
that's what's weird. Yeah, it came back.
I went down that trail through the woods, and whenever I was walking back towards you guys, I heard like two people talking. And then I didn't say anything. You're like, I hear people talking.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
what
like,
I'm
okay.
saying.
Yeah.
And then when I heard that, I was like, is this what she heard?
Yeah. It sounded like two people. I'm like, maybe there's a house over there or something.
There's a graveyard there.
Okay, is that what it was?
Yeah, remember we drove up to where the owl was sitting on the tombstone?
Which is weird because where I heard those people talking in the woods,
Yeah.
when we got back on the road, that's where you saw the animal. It cut out of there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wouldn't have freaked out as bad as I did, but I was watching this thinking Jens wasn't reacting to it. He was driving you. I didn't know you was fiddling with your camera, but I'm watching this thing for 4 or 5 seconds go up the road. But you could see it, then you couldn't see it. You could see it, and you couldn't see it. And then when it's just weird.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Absolutely.
what do you say?
Yeah. At some point, that thing stopped recording. I think it was when we were talking about the black creature that we saw.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. But
Yeah.
I guess let's get ready.
Yep.
Kind of try to come up with a game plan. We'll
Yep.
get back into the Daniel Boone National Forest
Yep.
and try to see what we can find. And like I said, that area where you and your wife camped at, where you heard the vocalizations, that's going to be a good area. I heard people talking. The coyotes reacted there. You saw some strange creature in the middle of the road. We
Yep.
saw the owl sitting on top of the tombstone.
Yeah.
Some things on thermal. I heard something walk off across the creek. And when you're there in that moment, it just seems like there's not a whole lot going on.
Right.
But when you let everything sink in, maybe it's the next day, the next week, you're like, there's something going on there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was just weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, it
I got
was
a
weird,
feeling.
and that's how the night started out down there. But like I said, I'm going to get a couple of those recorders. I'll find where they're at.
Yeah.
They're there. You can see too much sign there, man. Rock stacks, rock stood up like a tombstone, tree breaks everywhere.
Yeah,
And-
there were some tree breaks.
And I've got pictures I've showed you of arches, the X's, a stump with rocks stacked on it. Squirrels don't do that. Bear don't do that. In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, I can't, if people say, well, people do that. Well, I'm the luckiest damn man on earth, and I need to play the lotto because I keep finding an awful lot of it in these same areas.
Yeah.
It ain't people doing it. It really ain't.
Yeah.
There ain't no way, man.
That's true.
Nope.
In the future, you're just going to have to keep an eye out, see what else you can find, and just take a photo with your cell phone. If you hear something, record the audio. If you can get video footage or whatever, film it, and just build up a little database.
Yeah.
the
If
best
I
thing
had
you
to
can
do
do.
it over, well, I would have went to the other spot last night, but I was wanting to go to this one because the equipment you had with you, I thought that we could maybe hone in on something, but they're there because the stuff that I've got pictures and we seen down there, it's just as bad on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It
believe
really is. But
Well, let's see what else we can conjure up tonight.
oh, I can't wait,
what we
man.
can run into. And
I don't care. Let's get it.
All right, let's do it.
Sounds like a plan, man.
I appreciate you, Jimmy.
No, I appreciate you guys. I really do. More than you know, because it helps to talk to people that maybe understand a little bit more. But I swear to God, my whole life I thought this was normal. I really did.
Yeah.
And it ain't normal. It's far from it. But I can't control it. I've said it multiple times since it's been here. I didn't ask to see none of this. I didn't. And I ain't dabbled in anything. You know, like you see people do witchcraft crap and this and that. They're inviting in hosts that I don't think they want anything to do with. I've never done that. I believe in God. I've been saved and stuff. But there's more to this life than what people say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why Big Brother won't tell us what's going on, because they can't control it.
No, they
They
can't.
can't protect us from this.
You can't
just-
control something that has. I don't call it technology. I call it advanced beyond measure.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can you compete with that?
Yeah, you don't know when it's going to happen, where, and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, but I can't wait for tonight. I can't wait. I want to, we're going to put them out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good.
All right. That's a wrap, my friend.
Jimmy's Bigfoot encounters in Kentucky were truly terrifying, and I believe it would keep most hunters out of the woods for a very long time. These creatures are extremely territorial, and they will do a dominance display to run someone out of an area, and you just never know what they are capable of. I couldn't imagine being a little kid and experiencing that intense of activity out in the forest. That would be extremely traumatizing, and it would be something that would never leave your mind. Jimmy has lived with this for a very long time, and he's had a long while to think about this activity. I really do believe that Daniel Boone shot and killed a Sasquatch, and he was out in the forest quite a bit. Can you imagine what it's like to encounter one of these creatures and not be able to talk to too many people about it because they just don't understand? I am really glad that I was able to meet up with Jimmy, because a lot of the encounters and experiences that he's had in his life, I have had the same thing happen to me. So that was my goal with starting this channel, was to meet like-minded people. Like I said earlier, I will link my past Kentucky Bigfoot interviews at the end of this video, and I really appreciate everyone for tuning in today and for supporting the channel. Till the next one, take care everyone, and be safe.